quick note before the episode begins. I've decided that with longer interview episodes like this one, I'm going to start breaking them up into 2 parts. Just because guest episodes have double the amount of audio and then usually take almost triple the amount of time to edit because I have to coordinate the audio tracks and clean stuff and all that. So I usually either have to really grind out some hours to get these released normally, or I have to delay the episodes for a long time, and I don't like doing either of those things, so I've decided to kind of find a compromise and just break the episodes up into 2 parts. I think doing this will just make editing these episodes more manageable and make it so my guests don't have to wait around forever to hear their interview actually come out. So this is a new format I'm going to try using moving forward. I won't do this with every episode, just the ones that are longer interviews that I feel deserve being 2 parts. And also a quick note about my mic during this episode. For whatever reason, it starts off sounding kind of tinny, but as the episode continues, my mic stops having this problem, so for whatever reason at the beginning episode my mic sounds a little funny, just so you know. Okay, enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the podcast. With me today are Kiwi and Moglar. Welcome to the show, you guys.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
And the reason why I wanted to bring you 2 guys on as a guest is because for the past, year or so I've been doing this. One question comes up a lot I see in the forums or on Reddit or whatever, and a lot of people end up asking, how do you get good at shmups? Or what is that process like? And of course, when people ask such a broad question, sometimes it's like, okay, dude, there's a lot that goes into this. So
Yeah.
I thought, let's make an episode here that really digs into this topic and kind of fleshes it out as much as possible, at least. And I think you 2 are really great guests for this because from my perspective, it seems like you guys are just kind of showed up to the shmup somewhat recently and are just killing it. So
Thank you.
you guys want to start off kind of just talking about your background with how long you've been playing shmups and how you got introduced to the scene?
Okay. Yeah, I've been playing for about 3 years. I first started with the scene with Toho, specifically Toho 7. Played through a bunch of those. Went with Lunatic all the way, and then went to Mushi. And then I got really into indie games, like Blue Revolver and Devil Engine. And that's where I'm kind of at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. So you started with Toho. How did that happen? How did you discover Toho?
I'm sure I wasn't the only one who searched World's Hardest Final Boss a couple times as a kid. And I just happened to find the Toho 6 Extra Stage boss. And I was just really interested in it because it looked so different from all the games I would play. But I could never really figure out what game it was, where to download it, etc.
Right.
I mean, I was just a kid. I didn't know how to find a lot of things online. And jump forward to me one night being bored in 2016. I tried to find the game. I got it, although I got Toho 7 by mistake. But
Close enough.
I really enjoyed it anyways. And from the first time I started up the game, I went with Lunatic difficulty and just never went down because I just really enjoyed the challenge.
Holy crap.
And I just kept going till I cleared it. And I don't really think I've ever felt so satisfied from improving and beating a game before Toho 7. So after that, I just kind of kept going with Shmup.
You never played on normal or easy or even... You just went straight to Lunatic?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I wouldn't say never because I got up to the final boss before and then I took a break cleared normal really quick for like just as a break, and then went back to Lunatic. But yeah, I played Lunatic pretty much exclusively.
I'll move on to Moglar. So, Moglar, how did you first get introduced to shmups?
Well, it was also with Toho. I started really playing the games a bit in mid 2017. Unlike Kiwi, I was mainly playing normal though. I think like a year or two before, I might have also tried Toho 6, but I didn't really play it that much. Focus wasn't working for some reason or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But then like a year later, I got back into it. I got normal 1cc in pretty much all the Windows games pretty quickly, somewhat quickly, over the span of like a couple months.
Is your story similar with finding Toho? How did you find it?
I think I always just knew about Toho, but
Yeah.
never really played it that often or watched it. I just knew it existed for some reason.
I guess that the name does kind of go around.
Yeah. I remember being aware of Toho before. So here's an interesting thing to think about. So what were your guys' experiences with shmups before you really got them? For example, when I grew up, I played Raiden 2 in the arcade, and I thought it was pretty cool, but then I just kind of forgot about shmups for years and years, and then I knew about Ikaruga, played that a little bit, but then just kind of, was whatever about it for a really long time, until I played DDP. Did you guys have a similar kind of awareness of shmups, or, you know what I mean? What was that period like before you really got into them?
To be honest, I didn't really know about shmups at all. Like, I didn't know any of the big names like Raiden, Ikaruga, stuff like that. I just kind of found it by searching on YouTube for hardest boss. So I was like introduced to a completely new world once I figured out about it.
That's interesting. Not super surprising with the decline in arcades and stuff. Did you go to arcades a lot as a kid or anything like that?
No, not really. Although I did like a lot of retro games like Pac-Man, stuff like that, Donkey Kong, but I was never really into them. I just liked playing the upright.
Right, yeah.
So I guess that the closest thing I could say I had to shmup experience was Galaga.
Yeah, I remember that too. How about you, Moglar? Did you have a similar experience?
I think when I was like 4 or 5, on the PS2, there was 1941 on it. I believe that was the game. I think the titles might be longer than that, but I don't remember the full thing. I played that a lot on there, actually. I think it was like my favorite game on there.
Nice.
When I was like 5, but then I ended up forgetting about it, I guess. Forgot about like playing shmups for a while, I guess.
Yeah, did you have any kind of incidental run-ins with shmups before really diving into those Toho games? Where maybe you went over to friends and they're playing some shmup or randomly come across one?
Besides the game on that Capcom collection, not really.
Yeah.
From what I remember, at least.
Once you guys started with Toho, I guess I want to walk through what those initial experiences were like, especially Kiwi, since he's going straight to Lunatic. What was that like?
Took me quite a while to be able to, like a couple days to be able to beat the first level without dying. I think I still had to use bombs and stuff like that. But I didn't understand any of the fundamentals. So the very first enemies in Toho 7, they shoot bullets that are aimed away from you, so you can just stand still and not have to worry about it. I'd be like going all over the screen filling up with bullets.
Yeah.
It took me a while to actually figure out a lot of the basics like tap dodging and stuff like that. So I didn't really want to go down in difficulty because this was kind of what I saw in the videos. I just really wanted to do that. So I just kind of learned it as I went.
Okay, so you're struggling against Lunatic, and yeah, you don't really have a lot of fundamentals. I remember doing this too in DDP, where I'm just sweeping side to side with the laser. That was like my go-tos, back and forth with the laser.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're struggling, and it's just throwing all this shit at you. What was your process of, okay, how do I actually figure this shit out and get better? Did you just throw yourself at the game, or did you have some other ideas of what to do?
Yeah, for the most part, I just kind of threw myself at the game until I figured stuff out. I did a lot of stage practice to memorize a lot of the enemy spawns and stuff like that, figure out where the bullets are coming from. And I started to realize that there's actually that you actually have to pay attention to where you're shooting, where you are on the screen to be able to make sure that the screen doesn't get flooded with bullets. So I just kind of figured out how important routing is, all these basic stuff. Just kind of went from there.
And how about you, Moglar? What was your experience like when you were first just kind of tackling the genre?
With Toho, I definitely never could grasp the concept of streaming for some reason.
Took me a while to.
But I don't think I really did much routing. Really, well, I probably like figured out good strategies after like doing a few credits in each game. Yeah, usually I think I'd just do runs, maybe a bit of stage practice, not much though. I think that's an enjoyable way to play. Even now, like with new games that I haven't played much, usually I won't do too much practice unless there's a big problem spot that I need to check out. I'll just do runs over and over.
Yeah, I've kind of shifted to doing that a little more too, where before I'd always stage by stage it with a shmup, like a new one, I'd stage by stage, but now whatever, I'll just credit feed for a while, just to kind of know what I'm getting myself into a little better. So during those times, it doesn't sound like you guys, did you have any sort of external guides you sought out or external materials, or did you do any research, I guess, about the genre, or did you just focus on the games that you were playing?
In Toho, I don't think I did.
I primarily just did everything myself, but once I started to run into things that I just didn't understand how to dodge, I decided to look up some replays, but a fair amount of the routing was myself.
That's really interesting. And it's interesting that you two have such commonalities between your approaches to the game, because mine was a little different, where I get to stage, I think it was 4 in Dodonpachi, which is just kind of like where the difficulty wall starts.
Yeah.
There's got to be a trick. So I'm like looking up online, trying to find like, what's the trick? What's the guide or whatever? And that's how I found Prometheus's guide. So my strategy was find as much external information as possible and try and come up with a game plan. So it didn't sound like you guys did anything like that.
Yeah, I usually just learn on my own.
Interesting. I should have asked this earlier. Okay, before you're into shmups, what was your gaming background like? What were you into before shmups that might have influenced how you approached the games? I'll go ahead, Kiwi.
To be honest, I didn't really do a whole lot of competitive or really challenging games, but I still liked the challenge. The hardest parts of some of the classic Nintendo games, those will always be my favorite parts. I didn't really have any kind of competitive way to apply my love for this this challenge in games until I found out about shmup. So I was basically just playing Legend of Zelda, Mario, and Smash, stuff like that. Smash was definitely my favorite because I could actually, it was something I felt like I could get better at.
Did you play Melee?
A little bit. I don't know why, but I don't actually remember much of Melee. I just remember 64 and Wii.
Oh yeah, didn't get a GameCube, maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened there.
So how about you, Moglar? Before playing shmups, what was your background like with games?
Well, a couple of years before getting into shmups, I was into speedrunning. I was doing that for pretty much the entire time until I really got into shmups. Even after I got into Toho. When I started getting into Ketsui really, though, I kind of dropped speedrunning, I guess.
Yeah, I could see that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I can't believe I forgot this. I actually did speedrun Super Mario Sunshine for a little while.
Huh.
I got a 124 in that, but like you said, I dropped it once I got into shmup.
And so with your guys' background in speedrunning, because I kind of did some speedrunning too with Super Metroid back in the day, and I felt like a lot of those concepts that I learned did kind of transfer over to shmups in some ways. Did you guys have a similar experience there?
Speedrunning and shmups are fairly similar in how you should go about playing them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that a lot of speedrunners, if they tried out shmup, probably see a lot of carryover between their basic skills of learning routes and stuff like that once they got down the basics.
Right. this is still a question that continues to think about. Why aren't speedrunners more interested in shmups? I have in the past made a pretty focused effort of trying to bring over more speedrunners into shmups, and with mixed results, so.
A lot of them probably just don't know about them.
Yeah, and I do wonder, too.
Or know very, very little.
Yeah, that's true. And I do wonder, too, this is a theory I have of maybe the speedrunning community, from what I've interacted with, is kind of divided up, where there are the speed runners who are like the types of players who are really into the, hardcore aspects of playing the games, cutting the times, the techniques. Like, they're really into the gameplay side of it. And then there's a large part of the speedrunning audience that's more about kind of the community and the like enjoyment of the games, and they take a more casual approach to speedrunning, I guess you could say.
Definitely.
And I'm wondering if maybe that audience, the guys who are like really into the hardcore stuff, getting really their times really low and all that kind of thing, if they're actually the target audience for shmups rather than more casual runners, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see someone try to reach out to one of them and introduce the concept of shmups and scoring.
Yeah, and there have been a few people who've joined my Discord who were, speedrunners first and stuff, so it does happen. It's just, I don't know, I imagined that a speedrunner would just play shmup and it'd be like, oh, but that doesn't seem to happen very often. Okay, so getting back to your guys' experiences. So you're introduced to Toho, and I feel like this is a concept that I've made up in my mind. Maybe other people have experienced something similar, of the wall of difficulty, where in a shmup, for me, I can very clearly identify in DOJ it was stage 3 and DDP was stage 4, where the difficulty ramps up and you feel like, oh shit, I can't actually beat this. I'm stuck. I can't go any further. Did you guys run into something like that kind of wall where you feel you're just running up against something that's impossible to beat?
Sometimes. I know that I experienced a couple of smaller walls on stage 3 and stage 6 of Toho 7, because some of Margatroid's attacks are just at really weird angles, and I just wasn't equipped to handle with it at the time. And 6, I was just really bad at the boss in general. So those, I don't really think I definitely got over. I just kind of lucked my way through them.
Right.
Or bombed. But Ikaruga was a game that I could just not touch no matter how hard I tried for a long time. So I guess maybe that would be a better example.
I could see that. I could see how that would be, because Ikaruga seems like the type of shmup where you really got to know your crap. It's like there's less room for reaction and reflexes and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be, from my experience anyway, with it.
I spent a long time before being able to get past stage 2.
Yeah, with the boxes and the, I don't know, the weird, that section drives me crazy to this day.
I only played Ikaruga for like an hour or something, but yeah, I couldn't get past stage 2 at all.
Yeah, I just dropped that game until way later when I was better at.
Yeah, it's an interesting game because it doesn't feel difficult, but for some reason, for me, when I'm playing it, it's not like playing those later cave stages where you're like, this is out of control. Dying anyway, it's like, what is going on here? That's how I feel about that game. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't feel difficult, but you're getting killed all the time. So how about you, Moglar? Did you ever run into a wall or experience? Because I think a lot of players, especially people coming to the genre, experience this wall that kind of prevents them from really getting into it too much.
Not really, I think, but probably because I had never really played any modes that were like too far above what I could do. In Katsui, maybe I would have experienced it a bit. I remember like early on, it was pretty rare for me to get to stage 4 even.
Yeah, I could see that. Stage 4 is where it starts to get crazy.
And I couldn't even make it there. And then, even back then, though, with Katsui, I was always scoring, so it didn't really feel like there was a big wall. I was just improving my score. Improved my survival, that was just a bonus.
So that's actually interesting to me. You started off scoring right away.
Yeah, you two are crazy. You start off on lunatic mode, and he starts off scoring Ketsui. And then here's me doing, like, the most save scummy, low-scoring DDP runs. Like a total scrub. I get my first DDP 1-all, I post it on the forum, and the score is so low, they don't even accept it. They're like, sorry, the score is too low. I'm like,
Wow.
damn.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah. They got rid of that, but that was a thing for a while, where if your score was so low, they wouldn't even accept it, so.
It's just
Wow,
insulting.
that's sad.
You even got a 1-all and you couldn't get on.
Yeah, well, my 1-all was, like I said, I'm just bombing all over the place, like just, because DDP, if you bomb and stuff, you're not getting any score.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have moments, it doesn't sound like it, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Did you guys ever have moments of, okay, fuck this genre, this is too much, I feel like I'm not progressing, I feel like I'm stuck, everyone's so good and I suck, I want to quit. Did you guys ever have moments like that?
Well, I wouldn't quite say that I had anything like that, but Mushihime Sama Ultra was always a huge goal for me. I still haven't done it because I haven't put in the time yet. So I just like practiced the TLB a lot, like 60 to 100 hours of just TLB practice, because I really wanted to beat Ultra, and if I wanted to do that, then I had to beat the TLB.
Yeah.
So after a long time of doing that, I took a short break, like a month or two, because I was just like, okay, this is ridiculously hard. But after that break, I just couldn't stop thinking about shmups. I just had to come back, and I eventually figured out how to beat that boss, and I haven't really been on a break since.
Yeah, I could see that. It's interesting how, because I did that a bit with Hibachi. Like, I put off practicing against Hibachi for a long time. I was like, no, I don't want to feel like a loser, so I'm going to put that off for a long time. But eventually I decided, okay, if I'm going to be serious about this, I need to start practicing it. And I feel like just even practicing against Hibachi, hundreds of hours like you did, improved my skills overall, because it's just throwing so much stuff at you and you have to really be on your toes and you start to really learn how to read patterns better and stuff.
Yeah.
I also really like just grinding TLBs for some reason. I don't know what it is about TLBs, but I have like 50 hours in Doom maybe, and I've still never made it to the Aero Loop.
Well, it is a lot of fun.
I remember you posting on Shmupslam that video of you completely wrecking Doom.
Yeah, I got a no miss, no bomb.
That's freaking crazy. That must be a good feeling, though. I imagine, like, if you could beat the TLB, so it's like, I just gotta get through these stages, and then I can no miss, no bomb Doom. I wish I could do that with Hibachi. I really wish I could.
Well, yeah. I mean, in a run, there's no way it's gonna go that smoothly.
Yeah,
at least
I
not
understand.
on like my first, before I get a 2-all. Probably gonna be fucking shaking unless I have like 5 lives entering somehow.
Oh my gosh. I remember when I had a run, it was not even that long ago, I felt like, here it is. Because I've been working on the 2-all for a year now, pretty much. Here it is, this is the run. My hands, all of a sudden, they went numb. I was like, oh god, I couldn't even move my ship anymore. It was the most, I was streaming it, I was like, oh, turn off the stream, this is the most embarrassing. I think I died 3 times in 1 minute. It was like, boom, boom, boom. Run over. That was the biggest choke in history right there. So, Moglar, did you have a moment like that? The genre was just way too much for you, or anything like that?
No, I don't think so, really. I've experienced times where, like, I feel like I'm not progressing really that much, so I have to take a break. I feel like I might kind of be at that right now with Ketsui. Might have to take a small break. I think I might go play Destiny mode a bit.
That's a fun mode.
Yeah, it is.
So it's really interesting because it sounds like for you guys, it's just been kind of, at this point, it's just been kind of an upward climb of just steady improvement. that sound about right?
I don't really think that I've plateaued yet because there's some things that I couldn't do not too long ago that I've been doing lately. For the life of me, I could not beat Crimson Clover Arcade Original, and then recently I went back to it and tried to beat that game, and then I beat it in 4 days. And then in 4 days, I got to the TLB on Unlimited. So I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm doing a lot better now.
You already got to the TLP, dude.
Yeah.
What a beast. I played Crimson Clover, I think it was 2 months ago for a shmup club. And yeah, I got through novice mode pretty well, so I was like, okay, let's do arcade mode. And I think I've gotten to stage 4 in arcade mode, and I was like, wow, arcade mode is much more difficult than I imagined.
Arcade mode is a completely different beast.
Yeah, it is.
Novice is really damn easy in comparison.
I knew there'd be a jump up in in skill, but it's a pretty high jump from novice to arcade.
Yeah, it's really
Novice,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I think novice is a tad bit too easy.
That's a good transition. So you guys, it sounds like you guys didn't really have that period of floundering around, getting whipped by by the genre too much, which I think is it's probably unusual, but it's also you guys are extremely good players, so it makes sense. So I guess what I want to ask you now is, while you're improving, did you have any kind of moments where you felt like things were starting to click or concepts starting to click with you and they really stood out to you as, oh, I know how this works now. I know how this works?
I don't know. I think that I started to realize a lot of things once I went from Toho to Mushi, because cave shmups are a lot different than Toho, just
Right.
arcade shmups in general. So I think that once I was kind of done with Toho, I just learned a lot of skills that I never learned from those games, like being able to dodge through a lot closer bullets and just having a much different kind of difficulty.
Get a little bit into, okay, so you play Toho, you're destroying it on Lunatic, and then you go over to Mushi. What were the things that you remember where the game started throwing stuff at you? You're like, this is weird, or I don't know what to do about this. Do you remember certain patterns or certain stages that were like that?
Definitely the stage 4 boss. Everyone hates that thing, but I was so bad at it. I had to bomb spam it, but I wouldn't. So I just kept dying there over and over.
Yeah.
And a lot of the final boss patterns, for some reason, I just couldn't wrap my head around. So some of the bosses just had really weird patterns compared to Toho. Because Toho is a lot more about flashy patterns than, I don't know, practical patterns.
I feel like cave games especially will throw some pretty ugly and messy and filthy patterns at you sometimes. You're like, Toho, I feel like I'm not a good Toho player. I haven't played too much, so I might be wrong. But I feel like Toho patterns, when you see them on screen, they're much more organized and they make sense to you visually. And it's like, okay, I know what this is. And then you'll get into DOJ or DDP, and the boss just throws this mush of bullets at you. You're like, what the hell is this? How am I supposed to even deal with this? The Big B's curtain, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a boss before the TLB, the Big B in DDP, and he has these pink curtains of chunky bullets it throws at you, and it is the ugliest pattern ever. It's just overlapping itself. The bullets are really chunky and have huge hitboxes, and they're spinning in funky directions, and I usually bomb, but when I don't have bombs, I'm forced to try and dodge that pattern. I usually just pick a spot on the screen and just, okay, hopefully they open up here, because visually that pattern still makes no sense to me. Like, it's just this ugly mass. Do you guys remember patterns like that you ran into?
There are a lot of really weird patterns on Mushi Original. If you play that game, then you'll see a lot of very abnormal things. I think especially on the stage 3 boss, some of that stuff is so weird. Although Ultra has some of the coolest looking patterns.
Yeah, it's
like the stage 4 mid boss. The way that the bullets just kind of line up as they move, it looks almost 3D. I don't know how they do it. I think it's with like the shadows on the bullets, but it just looks so cool.
Yeah. So did you go to original mode in Mushi, or did you go straight to Ultra?
At first, I went to Ultra, but then I backed off once I saw the TLB, and then I'm like, Maniac.
Okay, so you never played too much original?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Because I thought it'd be interesting to hear your experience going from Toho to original Mushi, where it's just those lightning bullets flying at you.
Yeah.
If the bullet speed was like, what the fuck? If it wasn't that bad.
I did have, I didn't play a whole lot of original, but when I did, I had a lot of trouble with bombing because I didn't have enough time to think, okay, I don't think I can dodge this, the gaps are too small.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, there's a bullet and then you're dead.
Yeah.
You don't really have time to react to it. Or if you do react to it, you think, the gaps are wide enough, I can probably make it through. But because they're so fast, sometimes you just get clipped. So there's some kind of false confidence there a lot of times since there aren't as many bullets.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Psycho games are like that for me too. Really late on bombing in those. So how about you, Moglar? Transitioning from Toho to... was Ketsui your first non-Toho shmup, or did you play something in between the two?
I think I played a few things actually, but CCWI was the first thing, I believe.
So how was that? I assume that might be a little bit of a smoother transition.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it felt like super weird or anything. I think I made my control scheme in that game like similar to a Toho one too.
Oh yeah.
I think I'd still play like that for that game.
So what are your guys' control schemes? I'm curious.
For
I just
what
did
game in
normal.
particular?
I just do
Yeah,
the normal
pretty much.
cave layout.
Do you guys play on a stick,
Yeah.
keyboard, or... Oh, you're... Okay.
I play on keyboard sometimes when I'm really lazy and don't want to plug my stick in.
I use stick.
Okay, so we're all stick players. That's funny. So what are your guys' button layouts then?
Generally, I try to stick close to what Cave does.
Okay.
Like, what is it? Oh yeah, in Devil Engine, I use C for shot, and then I use A for speed change. Since, you know, when you hold that button, you slow down in Cave games. And then I have B to burst, since it's like a defensive, like a bomb.
Like a bomb?
Yeah, so that's how I have those set up.
I think I have an unusual setup, but I'm not sure. So I don't like my ring finger. I don't trust it. I don't think it's good, so I don't use it. So what I use is the top left button, light punch, Street Fighter player, top left. I use that, just the regular shot, you know, the one you hold for beam and everything. And then for rapid shot, I use the second top button, so medium punch. That's my rapid. And then bomb is my thumb, which is the bottom left button. So I use 2 fingers and a thumb. I don't use my ring finger.
What do you do in 4-button games then?
In 4 buttons games, I put the 4th button on the second bottom button, so medium kick.
Oh gosh.
So I still don't use my ring finger.
Jeez.
Do you guys just do the top 3? The 1, 2, 3?
I have an 8-button stick, so I usually use the top 4 if it's a 4-button game.
Oh, okay, so you use...
I use thumb if it's 4-button game.
What is the bomb finger? What finger do you use for bomb then?
Middle finger.
Middle.
Middle? Okay, and then what are you using for rapid?
Ring finger.
Oh,
The
okay,
cursed
so it's
finger
kind of
ring.
like shot, bomb, rapid? That's what Cave
Yeah.
does, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I knew I had a funky setup compared to everyone else.
Although for Blue Revolver, I do shot, special, rapid, bomb. I don't know why, but I like bomb on my pinky in that game specifically.
Oh, yeah. I could see that, because you use the special shot so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what got you guys onto sticks? That's a good question, because most Toho players are keyboard players, and they remain keyboard players when they transition over, from what I found.
I think I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. Also,
I
I wanted it so if I wanted to play on console, I think that might have been the main motivation actually. I wanted to get a 360 for like Atari Espagluta 2. That never ended up happening, but I ended up getting a PS4 for Shmups, so I guess it worked out in the end.
That's the nice thing about... I guess these days there's things like the Mixbox and stuff if you want to still use keyboard. I used fight sticks before I even played Shmups, so it was pretty natural for me there.
I, for the most part, used keyboard. But the problem, see, this is actually why I wanted to get a stick so bad. I had really bad ghosting on my keyboard. If I was doing a focus shot like Toho and I was trying to bomb, you couldn't bomb, so I would have to let go of shot to bomb.
Jeez.
So there was just an extra step involved, and I would die a lot. So I was like, okay, just stick, simple, no ghosting. And I actually ended up liking it a lot more than a keyboard.
It took me like a week to get used to stick, but after that, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a kind of conversion period where you're not very comfortable with either because you're trying to get used to the stick. But I think it's way worth it
now. I can play on both comfortably.
I can't use keyboard now.
I can't play on keyboard worth a damn. I do it more often than I expect to because sometimes I'm at work and I sneak in some games and stuff, but I'm still not super good on keyboard for whatever reason. I can play, definitely stick is my strong suit, and then I can play on pad pretty well too. But yeah, I still struggle with keyboard.
I can't play on pad.
Yeah, I can't play pad either. I'm kind of locked into stick now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like it's almost a generational thing where based on your introduction to shmups and your gaming background beforehand will more likely determine what you play on. People who grew up with them on the Saturn and Genesis, a lot of them are pad players because, you know, they use pads. And then people who discovered them through the arcade or had a background in fighting games or whatever, like myself, generally use stick. And then people who came in through Toho, a lot of the Toho players, or people who found it through emulation, or tend to be keyboard players. Just from the people I've interviewed and stuff, that seems to be a pattern.
Interesting.
As a child, I was always a console player. Yeah, I was always a console player, so I always used pad, but it just didn't really feel natural at all to me in shmups. Keyboard felt a lot more natural, stick felt a lot more natural. I don't really use keyboard for many games. A lot of the time I'm actually like really, really bad at using keyboard, but then there's like sometimes, well, with any shmup it's fine, but then like sometimes a couple other games that I'll just randomly be good at keyboard with for some reason.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, Kiwi, that there were some patterns like in Mushi that really tripped you up and stuff. I definitely ran into stuff like that too. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, I guess, if you had any learning moments that we can pass on to people who are struggling with these types of things. For instance, any pattern for like 2 years, any pattern that had intersecting lines or intersecting bullets for me, like a stage 3 in DOJ at the end where it has those 2 lines and they're intersecting and stuff, or any patterns that had basically 2 parts you had to watch, that was just death for me every time. I could not handle that for a really long time. Did you guys have any similar experiences with maybe like intersecting patterns or patterns from diagonal angles or from up and down and stuff that you struggled with and had to figure out some kind of solution for?
Toho 6 demarcation. That one's a noob killer.
So what does it do?
It's the last spell card of the first boss. It's not really that hard, but just when you're new to the genre, basically it's a bunch of circles with bullets that pass through each other. And you have to like go through them as they move apart. But there's also a whole bunch of aimed bullets that are shot at you, so you got to keep moving to the side to dodge those. Now going back to it, it's not all that hard, but I could not dodge that at all when I first started. I would usually die or bomb there.
Yeah. How about you, Moglar?
I'm not sure, really. Can't think of much.
How about, I have one for you. How about the grenades on the tank in XXVII, the boss? Did those give you any trouble? Because they still give me trouble.
Well...
Which boss?
Okay, so the second boss in XXVII is a tank, and it has these grenades. It's its final attack.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they fall to the bottom of the screen and explode, and then the bullets, you have to dodge them up and down instead of left to right. the bullets kind of sweep across the screen in the funky
Yeah, that one's super cool.
funky direction.
They explode when they hit the wall, although if you move the screen in the direction that it's shot a lot, it could hit the ground.
Sure. Yeah.
But
Did you have any trouble with that bad boy?
I don't remember really having any specific trouble with it, no.
Interesting. See, I was wondering if you guys had any moments where you kind of came up against something that you weren't sure how to overcome. You kind of had to think about it extra, kind of look at the genre a little differently to figure out how to proceed.
I think like I had some experience with like games that required some dodging before, but none top-down shmups,
Mm-hmm.
really. So some patterns that like aren't things that just fall down to the bottom of the screen. You have to read it and avoid it. Some that like come from other directions and stuff actually was just surprisingly good at just because I had dodging experience from other games, but the dodging that's more specific to shmups I had to get good at.
Interesting. So it sounds like for you, this type of thing felt pretty natural. It wasn't, you felt like you're flinging yourself all over the screen and just praying not to get hit.
Don't think the grenades gave me that much trouble.
So I'll go ahead and talk about an example that comes to my mind. So in stage 3 of DOJ, there's the mid boss where it's like that weird crab looking thing. So for a long time, I struggled for a very long time against that mid boss because I felt like I was just kind of panic dodging it. I was panicking whenever it had its final attack and I was just swinging around. I'm like, okay, please don't hit me, please don't hit me. And then I would just try and stop before each bullets and stuff. And then I remember one day, I save stated that and just kept doing it over and over and over. And one day I realized I need to look differently. I need to look at the screen differently. I'm looking at my ship. I need to start watching the entire screen and like taking in the pattern as a whole. And then once I started doing that, the way I looked at the screen differently really helped me because then I felt like all of a sudden those bullets that seemed wild and chaotic before seemed to slow down and seemed to be more manageable just by changing how I looked at the screen. Did you guys have experiences like that where you're kind of changing the way you look at the screen or the way you analyze the patterns?
I think from the get-go, I mainly looked up fairly often because I knew it'd be easier to read bullets that way.
Did you have any trouble coordinating? Let's say you're looking up and you're trying to dodge at the bottom of the screen. Did you have any trouble coordinating your ship's movements as you're watching the bullets come down?
I don't think so. I can't really remember. It's been a while.
Yeah. How about you, Kiwi? Any moments like that?
Yeah, when I first started, I was definitely looking right at my hitbox, which was not a good idea. If anyone's getting into the genre, that's one thing they should try to fix right away. Look above your ship, not right at the hitbox.
Yeah.
But since I was playing Toho Lunatic from the get-go, I had to learn that pretty quickly because some things I just couldn't dodge unless I was paying attention to where the bullets were coming from. Yeah, I just had to learn that pretty quick so that I could continue.
Did you have any moments where you felt like, especially since you're struggling against such a hard game right away, did you have any moments where you felt like you understood a concept while you were playing? It clicked for you. You're like, wait a minute, this makes sense to me now. Any moments like that?
At first, I don't think I quite realized how to direct the aimed bullets and stuff like that. But once I figured that out, I realized, wow, this game is not nearly as hard as I thought it was. Because especially on stage 2, where I think that the fairies will shoot giant red walls at you, I would just be like running all over the place, and then I would immediately get walled by a line of bullets. Once I figured out how important tap dodging is and misdirecting bullets, knowing where those enemies spawn from, it just kind of clicked like, oh, I have to actually care about where I am on the screen.
Exactly. I had a really weird approach to shmups at first, where I tried to apply fighting game tactics to shmups to see if they would work or not. And so one of the tactics is footsies, where you go back and forth, to kind of get people to bait out and stuff. I was trying to do that against bosses and stuff in DDP, where I was trying to play footsies with them with my shift, where I'd go back and forth. That's actually not a good idea for people, because what I was doing was I was directing their fire towards me, and then I was moving into their fire, and then moving. Yeah, so It actually took me a long time to realize that when you're misdirecting fire, screen real estate becomes very valuable. Any open space on the screen is like money. You don't want to just blow your load right away and just move over, because then you trap yourself in a corner. So that's actually how I figured out how valuable tap dodging is. One day I was like, okay, this left and right thing, up and down thing is not working. I need to hold still. And then I held still and just started slowly moving to the left. And all of a sudden those patterns became easier. I was like, okay, this totally makes sense now.
So was that the first boss you were playing?
I don't think it was a boss. I think it was a pattern in one of the later stages. Starting with the tanks in stage 5. Yeah, I was trying to go back and forth.
Oh.
And what you need to, that's like the definition of tap dodging, is the start of that stage where you're just kind of slowly moving across the screen. Then you move up.
Yeah.
Then you slowly move down. Yeah, do that. I don't know. I was trying to bum rush that stage, and it was not working out well at all. Did you guys have any experiences where you tried to apply some ideas, or like you were trying to do things that you heard might work, but you were putting them in the wrong places and it ended up just not working out very well?
Maybe after seeing some replays online of Mushi, where people would get up really close and point blank enemies, and then they would die right away because they were using Super Shot. I think that I tried that out and then would just keep dying because I didn't realize about the Super Shot mechanic. So I was kind of trying to apply something I saw in a replay without really knowing the underlying reason for what they're doing.
That's interesting too, because point blanking is another technique that definitely you need to kind of understand what's going on there.
Yeah. Some games require you to do something different to do more damage.
Yeah, and some games have bullet sealing and some games do not have bullet sealing. And so
yeah.
I remember when I discovered bullet sealing, I didn't even know what to call it at the time. I came up with some kind of weird term for it. Intimidation or something. I was trying to explain it. If you get close to the ships, they get scared of you and they won't fire. You intimidate them. And so I would just start experimenting on different ship types. So like, okay, will he get afraid of me? I'll like fly over a tank. He's afraid. Then I'll fly over like a big red tank and just blast me. I'm like, okay, he's not afraid. So did you guys do any kind of thing like that, of discover point blanking and kind of experiment with when it works, when it doesn't work, stuff like that?
Bullet sealing in particular, I did not realize, I didn't understand the concept at the time. So when I tried out Crimson Clover and I got to the end of stage 1 with all the turrets,
yeah,
that part would always freak me out because I thought that they would just keep firing and they keep respawning every time you kill them. So it took me a couple runs before I realized that, oh wait, they stop shooting when you get close to them. And then that just opened up a whole bunch of possibilities because I realized that extends to all the tanks on the ground and stuff like that.
Light bulb moment, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might have understood bullet sealing like pretty much immediately because of that section, maybe.
Yeah.
Since CCWI was the first arcade game I played, and in Toho, like, not really much of a thing in any of the games, even.
There's actually a lot of bullet sealing in Blue Revolver. Yeah, pretty much all of the ships stop shooting once you get close.
I think it would be good now is we should talk about some concepts that we think would be useful for newer players to understand that aren't really that apparent to a new player. You kind of have to be experienced in the genre to know about, but I think making them aware would be useful. So yeah, definitely the first one is the concept of bullet ceiling, where when you get close to smaller enemies, usually, they'll be afraid to fire at you, or they won't fire at you. And so you can use that to manipulate chains. You can use that to focus on larger enemies by placing yourself on top of the small ones to say, okay, chill, while you blow up the bigger enemies and stuff. Any other concepts? So there's tap dodging. Do you want to explain tap dodging, Kiwi?
Okay, so basically, in a lot of games, there will be a lot of directly at, and if you move all over the screen, then it'll flood the screen with bullets. It'll make things insanely hard. But what you need to realize is if you just tap to the side to get out of the way, then you'll avoid all of the bullets and it won't flood up the screens. Tap really slowly away from all of the aimed bullets and you won't have to deal with any.
Yeah, and I also found that if you're dealing with a lot of fast bullets, especially when you start playing second loop cave games and stuff, I felt like tap dodging is all of a sudden very important because it really is effective on fast moving bullets.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree there?
You have to stream faster if it is though.
Right.
If they're fast.
So why don't you explain streaming, Moglar?
Well, that's a big thing with the different loops in Ketsui. In Omote, you can stream way slower. In Uri, you have to stream extremely fast.
So how would you explain streaming to someone? How does that work?
When enemies fire aimed bullets, well, I think Kiwi basically explained it. It's basically the same thing, just different names for it. There's also restreaming, which I guess like you can't really call that tap dodging.
So what is restreaming?
So when you stream for a while and then right at the end you kind of misdirect the bullets and then go back through the other side.
Would that be with certain patterns that... I know Cave always has these types of patterns where they have a bunch of popcorns coming down on you, and the popcorns just fly directly at you and drop bullets, and so you're using shot and you're killing them, but then their bullets kind of make this wave or cluster, and what I usually do, DDP has a lot of these, you move downward and then you cut up and then cut through. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, I think so.
DFK does that a lot. Have you guys played DFK much?
Yeah. I played it for a little while.
Early on.
Yeah, I think it's stage 3 or 4, the one that's in space before the turrets. I think it's 3 or 4.
It's 3.
That one has like 3 of those sections where it's just the popcorn's coming down and then you move, and one of them's really long. You move downward with them. And then you have to find an opening where you cut upward, and it kind of makes a gap, and then you slide through, and then you repeat. Is that kind of what you're talking about, Moglar?
Yeah, I mean, it can also be with, like, just with bullets, though. Like, just misdirect a pattern at the end of your streaming, so you can slip through it and then go the other way.
Like a really fast aim pattern, maybe? Kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that. Any aimed bullets, really, you could do something like that with.
So we have streaming and tap dodging. We have point blanking. Any other concepts that come to your guys' minds of something that newer players should think about when they're getting into the games? Or that you found personally really helpful?
Well, one thing that you should make sure to realize is that you shouldn't be intimidated by a game and not play it just because there's what looks to be 1,000 bullets on screen, something like that. Because you just need to realize that you only have to dodge the bullets directly in front of you.
Right.
So a lot of them will completely miss you. So don't be afraid by the flashiness of some of the patterns.
Yeah, that's a good concept to go over. It's learning when cut out, I guess what you could call like visual noise. There are certain patterns where they're trying to intimidate you with, like you said, flashiness, where a lot of it is just noise. And you don't even have to worry about that. And you just need to figure out the actual bullets you need to watch.
Yeah, I remember I was playing, I think it was Toho 10, something like that. and I was doing some kind of really easy pattern. I forget which one it was. I think it was on the extra stage mid boss, the first pattern on that one. And it's pretty easy. And someone saw me doing it and they were just saying like, how are you doing that? That looks impossible. And on that pattern, just like the entire upper half of the screen, 2/3 of the screen is just like circling bullets, doing all kinds of fancy stuff. But then on the bottom where you're actually dodging, it's just like a couple aimed chunks at you. So you're not really dodging any of that.
That is funny.
So it's just like, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just tapping away.
I remember the boss of stage 1 of DDP has a pattern like that where it does this spinning turrets and then it has this pink ball essentially that spins off screen. You have to fly out of your way to get hit by it. And so, yeah, that's another good example of it's just complete set dressing. It has no danger, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet this is something you have to deal with a lot in Ketsui, right, Moglar? Like, because there's so many bullets on screen. What bullets are important and which ones aren't?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I haven't thought about it a ton in a while.
Yeah.
Something that like came to mind instantly for some reason was like the stage 4 boss final, where like the bullets, the aimed bullets in that pattern go around the boss and like do this weird spinning motion before they go aim at you.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird. Like when later on in the pattern, like they spin pretty far outwards actually, so it forces you to go like closer to the walls and the ends of the screen. Really, you don't have to worry about it that much. I guess actually, with what I do in Loop 2, I actually have to worry about it quite a bit because I try to just avoid going through the blue patterns for several waves by just spinning around it as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I've never done the second version, just the first. Do you need to unlock to go fast enough?
No, if you unlock, it'll do no damage, so you just have to optimize spinning around it without...
I didn't know if you had to do something janky like unlock, get around the first 2/3, lock, unlock, depending on where you are.
No, you definitely don't want to unlock.
Okay.
That'll make the pattern way harder because they have to survive way longer.
Yeah.
That goes for most patterns.
I think there's a really, really good example in Ketsui. The one where, I can't remember which boss it is, or if it's a mini boss. It's either in stage 3 or 4. The one with the pink and blue bullets and they swinging side to side. And I think you even mentioned that you looked at Pazzy's replay and he just said to stick close to, I think it was the pinker one. I think the pink ones are, I can't remember which one.
Oh, the final of the stage 3 boss.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to ride the blue line.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah. Like, imagine, okay, you're just new to Shmups.
Yeah, it is. That pattern that pattern looks like completely impossible. Looks like the hardest pattern in the damn game, but once you know how to do it. Like, it looks harder than, like as hard as all of the Doom patterns, pretty much.
It looks absolutely balls to the wall crazy.
Yeah, honestly, if you're listening to this and don't know the pattern, just look up the Stage 3 boss of Ketsui. All you gotta do is stay next to the blue line.
It's the third phase, the final pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine if, like, no one figured out how to do that. Everyone was just, like, doing the most insane shit.
Just bomb the shit.
Well, what about Hura players? They'd have to flail through it somehow.
Yeah. See, so there's a really good example of a pattern where essentially what Cave is doing is they're trying to intimidate you with how the pattern looks, but once you kind of solve its underlying behavior, it becomes much more manageable.
It's a really easy pattern, but it looks like one of the hardest in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lesson that, for the listeners, when you come up against another one that's a really good example is the final attack, which is hard, of Stage 6 boss in DDP, the one where it has those pink walls that open and close and then the aimed spears. That one, yeah. When I first saw that pattern and I first fought it, I was like, this is the most stupid shit I've ever seen. Like, what are you doing, Cave? What? Are you just trying to take my money? This makes no sense. And I was a little salty about it for a while. And then I talked thought about it. Like, okay, let's break this pattern down. And I started to realize, okay, the opening, closing, there's a rhythm to that. So I don't need to watch the walls. I can just memorize the rhythm in which they open and close. And then I can just focus in on the spears and their behavior. So I think a really good lesson for newer players that are listening is don't be immediately dismissed by what the pattern looks like. Try to analyze its underlying behavior and analyze what it's actually doing, and what you're doing influences what it does.
Yeah, a lot of patterns are actually, like entire boss patterns are aimed at you. So sometimes just changing where you are on the screen can make things a lot easier or harder.
Yeah.
Or how close you are to the boss too.
Exactly. Yeah, there are certain patterns where once you understand, hey, it's actually safer to be closer rather than to back up and be up against the back of the screen. Because I think, that's going to be your natural go-to position when you're a newer player. It's like, okay, I need to be backed up against the screen so I have enough time to react and everything. But one thing, not just reaction time, but another thing you have to be aware of is where you are on screen often influences what the enemies and boss are doing. And so, yeah, that's a good way to start is, okay, I don't know how this pattern works. Why don't I make a save state and just move around on screen and see what it does based on my movements?
Yeah, it's actually a great idea.
Yeah, find a sweet spot. I'm always looking for that sweet spot of, like, I'm in a weird area of the boss's aimed pattern. It can't really hit me here very well. So I think another concept that it's really basic, but I think we can kind of dig into it a little more is the concept of macro versus micro dodging. So why don't you start off, Kiwi, explaining what a macro and a micro dodge is and the differences there?
So a micro dodge is just going through the thick of a pattern, just making really tight dodges between bullets, stuff like that. But a macro dodge is get the heck out of the way dodge, where you just run all the way around a pattern instead of going through it. So usually you'll have to macro dodge really wide walls of bullets thrown at you or something without a clear path through it.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of bosses in cave games like Mushi and stuff like that, you'll have to micro dodge through a lot of small bullets.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much just going around a pattern versus going through a pattern.
Yeah.
Like that.
And so here's the bigger question. In your guys' experience, what are kind of the criteria of when you think it's good to micro and when you think it's good to macro? Obviously, this is extremely situational, but if you can kind of just detail what the pros and cons of each is.
I'd basically say if you can macro, then macro, because it's less risky. With micro dodging, sometimes if you have to, then, or sometimes if you micro dodge instead of macro, you can be in a better situation for your route. You'll be under where some enemies spawn, stuff like that. But if you can completely misdirect an attack and just get out of the way, then that's usually the better option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So can you guys think of scenarios that you've run into? I can think of a few where at first you were micro dodging or at first you were macro dodging and then you realized, wait, this isn't the right way. I need to switch to the other style.
Actually, yes. On the final boss of Mushihime-sama, on a Maniac mode at least, and Arrange, I realized that almost the entire phase of the final boss, the entire first phase of the final boss, can just be misdirected and macro dodged. Actually, yes, the entire first phase can be macro dodged. So if you just stay to the side, to the left or the right of the boss, then on some of the attacks, like the long streams of bullets, then it'll just aim over to the side and you can just get completely away from it. For the lines that he shoots in the very beginning, you can just move all the way out of the way and just keep dodging those. So you can actually completely avoid dodging anything in the first phase of the final boss.
Yeah. It's funny, for me, this is almost like cliche, I guess, if there's such a thing, where I played a lot of cave games and micrododging is your friend in a lot of cave games, Then I played some Psycho games, and I was trying to micro dodge all these patterns in Psycho games, and I was just getting wrecked.
Yeah, it does not
over
work.
and over and over. I was like, these games are broken. So I no one plays it. Then I realized, okay, wait a minute. I just need to macro dodge a lot of these patterns. Okay. It's starting to make sense now. Because I was trying to just weave through these, hitboxes are much larger and Gunbird and stuff like that, and hitboxes are just like huge compared to their size a lot of the times.
Boxes in that game felt
Yeah.
I hate how it's right on her head too. It's not centered like most shmup hitboxes, but right on her head. So she just headbutts all the bullets.
Maybe that's why it felt bigger than the sprite to me.
So that was a situation where I realized, okay, me trying to be swaggy and micro-dodging through these patterns is actually not a good idea at all.
Yeah, you should be aware of what kind of game you're playing, because some of them just don't allow for micro-dodging at all.
Yeah, especially older shmups too. Another problem I have
Yeah.
with older shmups is I try and micro-dodge through stuff where the game's like, that's not gonna fly.
Yeah, micro-dodging in R-Type.
I feel like Rolling Gunner is kind of it's a game where like you can micro a lot of the patterns, but a lot of them are stupidly hard to micro, and
Yeah.
there's some strat that you probably would not think of very quickly where you can just macro it and make it way easier.
Moglar, did you end up getting a clear of Rolling Gunner? I can't remember.
I got a clear of casual, but that's not really anything to brag about. Took me 2 attempts. I got a clear of original though, not a TLB clear, no expert clear. I haven't played the game that much since I got a clear, although I did get a score PB in original actually by like 200 mil. Need to do some more runs of that.
So I think that's a really... Because I played quite a bit of Rolling Gunner too, and for whatever reason, I really struggle with Rolling Gunner. I feel like...
Are you trying to micro dodge everything?
Probably. That's probably one reason why I struggle. Because I feel like...
Yeah.
I want to get your feedback on this, because I kind of feel like I don't understand that game very well. The damn screen is too huge. It's a 16:9 screen. The sprites are small, though, and it's just full of bullets and stuff all over the place. And so, yeah, I just feel, especially in the later stages...
Enemies coming from behind you and shit. You just sit on a part of the screen and then you just suddenly die and you're like, what the fuck killed me? And then you see like a billion like Zako enemies coming from exactly where you're sitting. You're like, why?
Yeah. And in that game...
That happened to me a couple times. It's pretty bad.
In most shmups, I feel like, okay, when I'm playing, this is another good piece of advice, I always try and keep a part of my brain focused on where am I trying to go? What is my goal? What part of the screen am I trying to get to? Or, like what part, you know what I mean? Rolling Gunner, where do you go? The whole screen is enemies just all over the place, and so...
It's pretty hard, bullet pattern-wise, honestly. A lot of the patterns are quite hard. But
yeah,
the bombs are very, very strong. You get an auto bomb that depletes all your bombs, just in case if you do get hit. You've got hypers for a bunch of bullet cancels over the course of the run.
And so for you guys, what part of shmups are the hardest for you? Like what, you know what I mean? Like what aspect of the genre that is hardest for you specifically that you can think of? For me, I struggle with patterns that have a lot of horizontal dodging, the grenades and stuff, where you have to dodge both side to side but then up and down. Those I still kind of struggle, like my eyes still struggle to follow patterns that have a lot of horizontal dodging in them.
I'm not very good at dodging stuff that's below me.
Oh
yeah, like in Crimson and Clover, where it comes up behind you in that one stage.
Yeah, I hate that part.
Yeah. Maybe I could agree with that. Yeah, it made me think of
Stage 4
Doom
boss.
Phase. It made me think of Doom Phase 2.
Oh, okay.
Like The pattern, like, there's the red bullets that come from the top missiles, and then the blue walls that come from the bottom, which is kind of readable. And then on round 2 of it, it flips around, and the red bullets are coming from the bottom, and the blue walls are from the top, and it is impossible to read. Luckily, you don't actually have to dodge it at all, but I've tried it just for fun, and holy hell, it is the most unreadable shit imaginable.
Yeah, I think the pattern that is still to this day my kryptonite, where if I don't have a bomb, I'm just dead, is the blue swarm. I don't know what to call it. The blue bullet pattern of bocce. So it has the first pattern, which is like, it just throws a bunch of spam at you. And then the second, it drops these blue swarming little bullets. I'm sure you guys might know what it is.
Yeah.
So Pearl and Jamers, I talked to them about this, like, guys, how do you deal with this? Because they can get through it pretty consistently. And they're like, well, you just kind of move down here and dodge stuff. And I'm like, I can't understand how to dodge this pattern. So, yeah, that's another one that...
It seems hard to no miss, no bomb. But, like, no miss one bomb, no missing it didn't seem that bad to me.
Yeah, most players do end up bombing it, but there's times where I'm out of bombs.
No miss, no bombing it seems pretty hard.
Yeah. It's
Is
funny.
Is that one of the patterns that speeds up at the end? Too?
Yes. Yep. They all do, pretty much.
Hibachi is so bad with that. Every fucking pattern just speeds up the end and becomes a complete mess.
Yeah.
I feel like you need like one bomb for every pattern in that fight, or at least I did. I've have some experience with that boss just because of my TLB addiction.
And that's the general advice most players give: is you dodge most of the pattern, you bomb at a certain point where, yeah, it's basically the bomb ends the pattern. What's funny is, okay, I'm getting on a tangent here. What's funny is I found that you can actually do a strategic suicide on that blue pattern, because if you kill yourself kind of early-ish in the pattern, but not too early, you get a really fat point blank on Hibachi. Huge.
Yeah.
They probably did not expect you to do that. And so usually I'll just murder myself on that pattern anyway, which is another reason why I never dodge it. But the other day, I just had to get through that pattern, and I probably could have got the clear because it had a really slow final pattern. I just had to get through that pattern, and I'm going into, I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to dodge this pattern. I've never dodged it in my life, and I didn't. Yeah, so there was a situation where had I been able to dodge it, it might have been in the clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about a lot of the technical aspects of getting good at the genre. Now here's a larger conversation that I've actually had with people in my Discord and stuff in the past. Okay, outside the game, not in the game, what is some advice you guys have staying with the genre to be able to enjoy it, outside gameplay-wise? Or some
Not
advice.
In the game, in the brain.
Yeah, in the brain. Like, what's some advice you guys have?
The shmup community is really nice. I mean, I guess you could talk to people about shmups, figure out some things you haven't heard of before, maybe learn of some games you've never heard of before.
Really good. Yeah, I think one reason why I'm as invested in the genre as I am is definitely because of my podcast and talking with all the players. Because I remember when I first started 2 or 3 years ago when I was playing, I was getting 1-alls barely, and I was like, okay, this is probably the end of the line for me. I'll never get better than this. I'll just accept getting 1-alls and call it a day. Like, that's just as far as I'm going to go in this genre. And I probably would have ended up that way had I not become more involved in the community and talking to super players and talking to other players. And you kind of get like the inspiration to continue to play and to get better. I think you can't understate how important interacting with your fellow players is. It really does give you a whole lot more knowledge, confidence, and interest to continue playing.
Yeah, and especially because there's usually no one to talk with about this kind of stuff, because the genre still isn't very mainstream at the moment.
Oh yeah. As far as I'm aware, the only person in my entire state that plays shmup seriously. So, yeah, without the community, I'm just in the middle of nowhere playing these games.
I don't actually talk with other people that much, though I probably should. Really, like, reach out to people to
Yeah.
talk to them very often. I don't know of many, like, places where people, like, a bunch of people talk, really.
Yeah.
There's Elixir's Shmup Discord. That's about it.
Yeah, that's mainly what I use.
So outside of direct interaction with other players, what are some other out-of-game ways to get more invested in the genre or to learn more about the genre that you guys have found helpful?
Yeah, I also don't watch his replays very often. I feel like I should watch them more often, though, because usually I enjoy them. It's just, I don't know. One thing also is, like, when I take a break from Shmups or something to, like, do whatever else, I usually feel way more motivated to play Shmups for some reason.
I can understand that. Any other ideas, Kiwi, that, let's say, through your shmup education, you're getting into the genre that you found were kind of good ways to help you either maintain your interest or, because I mean, you guys have some ridiculous achievements already, like the Devil Engine, the Blue Revolver, and then Moglar's murdering Ketsui. Pretty exceptional how far you guys have come so quickly. So where's that motivation coming from?
I think that mainly my motivation just comes from a love of the genre, or a love of the games that I'm playing specifically. I can't really build up the motivation to do anything spectacular in a shmup unless I really like the game that I'm playing.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Right now I'm kind of looking for the next game that really catches my interest. But I think that what kind of keeps you going is just finding the game that you really like.
I think that's a good point to point out to listeners too, because I feel like in a way, might be a little controversial. For me, there's a certain type of shmup that I like, and there's other types of shmups that I'm kind of like, about. And growing up, I played the wrong shmups. Like Raiden. Raiden's a great game and everything, but it's not for me. But in my mind, shmup equaled Raiden. So the entire genre, to me, was Raiden. So I'm like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And I feel like I'd never played a cave game, I probably wouldn't be that into shmups even now. And I've known players who, cave games are not their jam. They like older style shmups, or we all have different preferences for the subgenres. So I think that's a really good piece of advice for the listeners is, let's say you play Ikaruga and you're like, wow, this isn't all it's chalked up to be. Maybe think about trying other shmups within the genre that are a little different.
Yeah, trust me, Ikaruga is not for everyone.
Yeah.
I really like that game, but I know a lot of people who don't.
I struggle with it, and I finally pinpointed why I don't like Ikaruga. I figured out why. It took me years. It's because I don't like waiting around for the different enemy patterns and stuff. Especially in the first two stages, you do a lot of waiting around. Like, you shoot 3 things, wait, 4 things appear, you shoot 4 things, wait. Like, I have too much ADD for that. That's why I like cave games, probably, because I need constant shit flying at me at all times. Like, that's what I enjoy.
Just flail around in between every pattern.
Yeah, like Ketsui or DDP, DOJ, and I like Garega, and I'm opening up to a lot of different shmups, but that's one thing I really struggle with is shmups that make me wait around or make me, like, hang out too much.
Yeah, Ikaruga likes to be pretty cinematic.
Yeah, exactly. about you, Moglar? So you play Ketsui, Crimson Clover. Have you found that there are types of shmups that didn't really appeal to you, or you kind of more rounded in that way?
Like you mentioned with playing like the wrong shmups almost. I tried 1941 again in MAME and didn't really like it at all. But, well, I don't really play too many games. I mainly just stick to things that like I almost know that I'll like.
Mm-hmm.
Although with something like Garega, I guess, I wasn't sure. I was definitely not sure at all if I'd like it. But I actually do think it's a really good game. I enjoyed it a lot.
Garega's an interesting one because the other day there was a post on Reddit. The guy posted like, hey, why is Garega good? Why do people like this game? It seems pretty whack to me. And I kind of, and like, most people are going to be like, okay, this guy's kind of being a douche or whatever. I kind of sympathized with him because when I first played Garega, especially coming off Cave games, I kind of, in my heart, for a while was like, okay, this game might be a little overrated. I don't know if it's all that it's chalked up to be. But considering that a lot of people I hang out with, online and stuff, are Garega players and they're so passionate about it, I was like, okay, they can't be just this passionate about this game randomly. There has to be something to it here. So I stuck with it, and then it like grew on me. I was like, okay, I'm starting to get this game now. And it's like one of those albums you listen to where at first you listen to it, you're like, I don't know about that. But then as you listen to it more, you're like, okay, this is actually good. That was my experience with Garega. It took me time. It took me a little bit of persistence, but I love it now. It's one of my favorite shmups.
Yeah, I think like I played it for like a couple hours in MAME before getting it on the PS4. I didn't really like it that much. When I got it on the PS4 and started playing it on there, I started to realize that, like, wow, this game is really fucking good.
I don't have all this lag.
I'm also not... I probably wasn't... I probably didn't have score or anything in my mind at all when I was playing it on MAME.
Yeah.
But no, I think that helped me enjoy it a lot more. Also, I probably just had a lot more knowledge of the game by the time I played it on PS4.
Yeah, I feel like Garega, if someone came to me, well, sometimes this does happen, people are like, hey, what shmups do you recommend? Now I have the answer. It's like, play Blue Revolver or Zero Ranger. That's my answer now. It's like, play one of those two. For a while there, I always kind of struggled because there didn't seem to be one that I felt had like a really good overall experience for newer players. DDP, it used to be kind of DDP, but then DDP can be brutal and cruel at times, so I'm like, do I want to throw someone right into DDP? And then DFK, I was like, maybe DFK, but then DFK has a lot of intricate mechanics that you need to know. The purple A lasers and the hypering and the ship types. So I was like, that's a little complicated.
DFK is a really fun game for a beginner, at least, I feel.
Yeah,
mainly
just because canceling.
Well, I think what I enjoyed about it, people always shit on the Autobomb, and like even like
I love
now
Autobomb.
I kind of do. But back then, the Autobomb made it so fun, dude.
Like if they're balanced correctly.
Well, DFK is not really balanced.
No, because it just gives you autobombs. I like autobombing, but I mean, not every game should have it. But if it's made into the game well, I think it's a good mechanic.
I think it's fine if it's done well. But in DFK, it was so fun as a beginner because I could just like flail through everything. And I was like, whoa, how did I go through that? How did that happen? And it was like the most fun shit ever. I probably wouldn't enjoy it much now. But
I enjoy DFK. My only concern, because this happened to me, is I did not understand how those purple aimed lasers worked. Like you need to laser to protect yourself from those. And so I would just get wrecked by those over and over because I was shooting and they'd just shoot me and kill me.
Yeah.
And the game doesn't really communicate to you at all, hey, laser when you're getting hit by the purple lasers. So a lot of the game structure does work for newer players. It is a recommended one. Just you need to be aware of certain things. Like, okay, you need to laser the purple lasers, or you need to understand how hyper works or how the different ship types work and stuff.
I think I already heard about how the purple lasers worked. I think like I watched a bunch of shmup videos like after I got into stuff outside of Toho. Like I'd just watched like a shitload of videos on them, but didn't actually play too much.
Oh, okay. So you were prepared. I kind of wished Cave just threw in like a voice sample. Laser! At when the first one shoots at you, it's like...
Laser.
Gives you some kind of clue. The first time, it's like, oh, okay, laser these. Because it's like a really basic part of the game design of DFKs, those purple lasers. So, we've talked about the more educational side of things. So now, here's something I really want to talk to you guys about, especially since you guys have such amazing achievements, which is setting goals and steps you guys have taken to get through your goals without getting frustrated or quitting, stuff like that. Because, man, I've had struggles. So, Kiwi, for instance, your Devil Engine world record or your Blue Revolver world record, what was your goal setting like for that?
For Devil Engine specifically, since the game was new, the record was being constantly pushed higher between me and PO. So I would say that for that game, my goal was just to keep beating PO and see where that went. That was a lot of fun. So with a newer game, it's just kind of get as high as you can, beat the guy in front of you. For Blue Revolver, I set incremental goals so that I could get closer to the top score. First was 50 million, 75, 100, 125, 150. And then after that, I started to look at the top replay, and I was seeing what he was doing, and I would try to see if there were much better ways to do it. And I found a lot of strats where he missed out on a lot of points, and then I just kind of kept going for there. Just the higher I got, the smaller goals I gave myself. And I just kept going until I couldn't go anymore, really.
And did you ever run into something I like to call reset syndrome? I've had this a lot where, especially when you're really thirsty for that goal, you're really thirsty. For me, it's like the tool. And you end up doing maybe even days or hours worth of just run, reset. Like you're like getting stuck in places, or you feel just like you're on a treadmill and you're just not going anywhere. Did you ever experience anything like that?
Yeah. There were actually a couple of spots in stage 1. It wasn't a huge point loss, but there were these big ships that would leave the screen if you didn't shoot a cluster missile at them at the right distance. So I kept resetting whenever I would miss one of those guys, because they were 5,000 points, and then times 64, that's a decent point loss. And then there were several times where I would die once, something stupid, die again, then I would go over on bombs on stage 2. Yeah, there was a little while where I just wasn't very consistent, and then I would just spend a long time not getting anything done. More specifically on Muxia range, that would happen, because if you bomb or auto bomb, then you literally just have to reset.
Yeah, DDP is the same way.
One time where I went like a couple days without getting past stage 3, very inconsistent. So I have definitely had that problem.
And did you find any kind of ways to get through it? Or no? Or did you just grind it until your head exploded?
I learned that I should just stop doing full runs when I'm not consistent enough to make it past stage 2 or stage 3.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're stuck in restart syndrome, you just have to suck it up and do stage practice until you're consistent. And it's not always the most fun thing, especially when you've been spending so long just playing the stage and failing in a run. You just want to get through and get the one run, get it over with. But you should really focus on consistency.
Yeah, you have no idea how much I've done that with DDP, where like last November, I was doing full runs, and I definitely was not consistent enough, especially in the second loop. And I've spent hundreds of hours save stating this goddamn game. I was sick of it. I'm fucking sick of this game. I just want to get the 2-all and move on with my life. So I just threw myself over and over, run after run, day after day, and I eventually had to just throw my hands up and be like, okay, Mark, you're not consistent enough. You actually have to practice these stages again. And that was kind of a bummer, but after I did it, I was like, okay, that was the right decision. So yeah, definitely when you get in that mode in your head, it is not a pleasant experience to realize you have to go back and stage practice and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is healthy because I was tearing my hair out. I was going crazy. I wanted to like throw my arcade stick out the window every run. I was getting so salty. You have no idea.
I know what you mean.
I've never gotten more salty at a game in my life, even fighting games. I was like, this game, I was getting so pissed. So, Moglar, any experiences like that?
With resetting, well, yeah, I think it happens to a lot of people probably. Unless you do like only no resets, which is hard, but probably a pretty good way to go about it. Yeah, it happens sometimes, but it's also like, it feels, with Ketsui at least, like it feels like I can just improve my stage 1 scoring when it's happening. Maybe stage 2 a bit. So it's not a complete loss.
You took an interesting approach to Ketsui, it sounds like, where you're scoring right out of the gate. You're not playing for survival necessarily, which I'm going to do as well. I'm going to copy you when I start playing Ketsui because I'm never going to do this survival to all thing in a cave game ever again because...
Yeah, no, so pure survival is pure torture.
It is, because even after you get the far in the stages and stuff, your score is still awful. It's still horrible. And so you're like, what am I doing with my life? Throwing myself at this game, but I've learned a lot, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ketsui scoring system is fairly easy to get a basic grasp of, so... which is part of the reason why I was able to start scoring it so quickly.
And it did sound like earlier you mentioned that you'll take breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
What have been times where you felt like, okay, I need a break? Have you had anything like that?
All the time, it's not that I feel like I need to take a break. It just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Rotating between certain games is a good strategy too, I think. Like switching off.
Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Because I've heard conflicting ideas, and myself, I'm not totally sure how to go about this.
If you're a bit stuck in a game, like switching to another game and then going back is probably pretty optimal, or switching to a different game mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've found that sometimes
Probably the
switching
most
off of a game and going back, you'll just magically be a little better.
Yeah. Well, I think like taking long breaks in general, usually when you come back, you just play really well.
Exactly. That happened to me with DDP, where I took like a month off. I came back and I damn near got the 2 all. I was like, okay, what the hell? And then I was feeling so swag. I was like, I just got good in the past month. I just got really good. And I was like, okay, I got this 2 all in the bag. It's coming. It's coming.
I got good, and I wasn't playing at all.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, I started to kind of struggle again. So there's, I guess, something about that initial coming back.
Yeah, when I came back to arcade mode in Ketsui after maybe a month and a half, I played XXVII Special for Shmups right before it though, which probably helped a bit. But when I went back to arcade, I was getting PBs like instantly. I improved my PB by like over 30 mil in like a week.
That's crazy.
And I've improved, that was a month ago, I've improved like I improved 4 mil since then. So
What is your PB?
395.7 million in OMO. Never got there, even though I've been close.
Yeah, definitely on the come up. I mean, you're knocking on the door there. So when you guys are rotating games, how many do you guys normally keep on rotation? Is there like a count you guys have of like, okay, I'll play 3 or 4 shmups, or how does that work for you guys?
As long as I'm not stretching myself thin, do just whatever feels right. Sometimes I'll rotate between 2 or 3 games, something like that. Although if I'm really into one game, I'll just stick with it until I get tired.
Actually, haven't really done it that much until recently. Recently, I've been playing Rolling Gunner and Grega on the side.
I still gotta play Rolling Gunner.
It's good. Very, very good game.
It's really unique too with the way the gun works and everything.
No one plays it though. Feels bad, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, part of it is just the struggle of an indie shmup, but I also feel like it's kind of a bitch to get a hold of.
You also
So
have to yeah.
you have to FedEx that bad boy from Japan. So I feel like them releasing it digitally would help a lot.
It would. Well, it is on Switch digitally, but only on Switch for some reason. I don't know why it's not on Steam. Maybe they got so few sales that they can't afford the $100 to put it on there.
Yeah, but I feel like they could put it on, like, what is it, itch.io or
That's true.
Get
They
Good
could
Old
put it on
Games or
Steam.
something
They
like
probably
that.
could.
I mean, since they're just selling you the disc and it's not copy protected, I'll tell you that much. Because I installed it on 2 different computers in my house. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to install it on both computers. They might as well just sell you the download directly, like PayPal me and I'll give you the download or something. Because it's not super official release or anything. I think I have one last question for you guys, and then I'll talk with Kiwi a little bit about his Stunfest experience, because I'm curious about that. My question is a little bit weird, but I'm going to try and explain it. So the other day, I was thinking about some of the interviews I've done with the players in the past, and I've kind of touched on this subject, but not as directly as this episode. And I remember, depending on who I asked, I would get different replies onto how they learned the games or what their struggles were. I remember Jamers, I asked him about, was there ever a moment where you felt like the genre clicked for you? I remember he's saying, I think it's in that episode, he says, no, not really. And it feels like he kind of understood the genre all along, like it never was a mystery to him or anything. And then there are other players like Prometheus or Juju Kenobi that kind of explained where they did really meticulous study of the genre, and that's how they got better. They went all in, like mapping out the stages and save stating 10-second increments and really analyzing and breaking the games down, and that's how they learned the games. And for a long time I thought I was kind of like them. I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of like me. And then I realized I'm nothing like that at all. I just wish I was. And I realized how I learn shmups and what type of player I am is I'm just basically a stubborn bastard who throws himself at the game over and over and over through trial and error until I learn. I study a little bit here and there, but really I think my strong suit as a player is just pure persistence and stubbornness. And so I wanted to ask you guys, if you were to describe yourself as a player, what strengths you have and weaknesses you have, or what things kind of set you apart from how other people approach the genre. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think.
Well, I'd say that I'm a very hopeful player. Getting the high score is never off the table if I enjoy a game enough. I think that might be one of my biggest strengths, that I'm not discouraged easily.
Yeah, I mean, you're like busting out world records.
Another strength is probably that I'm willing to put in the time necessary to get to a place where I want to be. Some people either don't have the time to do that or just don't feel like putting in the time.
Yeah. Do you feel like you optimize your playtime? as far as, okay, you're really learning a lot each time you play. Is that something you're good at?
I don't know if it's quite optimal, but I basically try to get all the practice I need out of the way early, and then I just do runs for a while so that I can get in as many attempts that have a chance of clearing as I can. But sometimes I have to go back practice and then back to runs. Sometimes I'll get tired of doing runs. So I guess I could probably do things a little more optimally than the way I do them right now. But I certainly try to make the most of my time.
And so as a player, what do you think is the biggest thing you want to improve on?
To be honest, this is a bit of a weird one, but I tend to worry too much about how my performance looks. For example, sometimes I'll restart runs if I make a minor mistake that'll just look unimpressive, or if I didn't hit a certain score milestone by a certain point. And I do this because if I get a new PB that run, then upload it to YouTube, it might not look as good as if rather than me resetting and trying to get a better one.
I know what you mean there.
I basically just imagine someone who gets into Blue Revolver and he's trying to score it. Then he compares score milestones with me and he's thinking like, wait, he only has this score by now? Or that's really low? Or that he missed that break? That one's so easy, something like that. It's kind of petty, but it's something I actually think about and restart a lot because of, and I should just learn to let that go and just finish runs regardless.
I remember doing that with Dodonpachi when I was playing it for score a while back, where chaining stage 1 and 2 in the big picture isn't worth that many points, but you kind of look like a scrub if you don't.
Yeah.
So I dropped the chain in stage 1, barely losing any points by doing that. But in my head, I'm like, okay, people are going to think I'm a total scrub because I dropped the chain in stage 1.
Yeah.
So I'm going to reset this run. And then I did that for a while. I was like, I'm losing a lot of unnecessary runs because I'm resetting in like stage 1 or 2 for pure vanity. So I understand what you're talking about there. How about you, Moglar? How would you describe your strengths and weaknesses as a player?
I usually like to do mainly runs or credits instead of a lot of practice. Although it depends. Sometimes I do a bunch of like individual level grinding to improve my score, but a lot of the time I'm just mainly doing runs with some practice on the side. I think I'm getting better at balancing it, but yeah. I think the full run approach doesn't work too bad for Ketsui. I think it depends on the game. Like people like Juju and Prometheus, with how they go about games, that works. That definitely seems to me like it would work the best with Dodonpachi games compared to like any other shmups, really.
Yeah, because the chaining is so goddamn strict.
Exactly.
I've actually had people message me and say, hey, a lot of the people you talk about have this one, very scientific style of approaching these games, but I think you should talk to people who do full runs and stuff. And I was like, that's interesting. I just don't really know anyone who does that.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, well, I interviewed the Japanese super player, Araska, just now, who does Ketsui. Yeah, he plays on arcade and I'm assuming does a shitload of full runs because he's on an arcade cabinet. So that must be how a lot of Japanese players play these games, is they're just doing full runs. What are some advantages that people wouldn't realize about that approach?
Well, with full runs versus save state practice or whatever, with save state practice, like you can practice one section over and over and get quite good at it. But if you're doing full runs, you're getting practice in everything, as long as you're not resetting constantly.
Right.
So I feel like for me, save state practice and save state practice for like specific sections of a stage. A lot of the time I'll do individual level practice, but that kind of practice is best for when you're just learning something, or if you've been having a lot of trouble with one section recently.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two.
I'd imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'd imagine that, especially when you get to a certain skill level, like the first 75% of the game you could probably learn during full runs. But when you come up against the later stages or the final bosses and stuff, is that where you need to switch over to stage practice, or do you still continue with full runs at that point?
For Katsui, yeah, I did a lot of practice of Loop 2. Like, I learned routes for everything in Loop 2 before getting really far into it in a run. When learning something, I usually do practice for that, learn it with a save state. And then after that, I don't practice it too much outside of runs. Like, I learned routes and everything, but after that, I actually got the majority of my practice.
Yeah, I'm going to try something similar when I start playing Katsui. More of a mixture than my usual way of doing a lot of save state practice.
Yeah, I think Katsui is more of like a game that's better to, like, in relatively compared to like something like DDP, that doing for full runs would be more beneficial compared to constant practice.
So what do you think is like a skill as a player that you want to work on or like improve?
I'm not sure really.
For me, one that I definitely need to work on is actually watching replays and studying a little harder before I start playing.
Maybe me too a bit.
With the second loop, for instance, had I done a little more studying, I probably would have saved myself a lot of hours of trial and error.
Yeah, I watched I think a couple Katsui replays recently, and I did learn some things from them. I'm not sure if I added anything from them yet, but I definitely saw things that I've never seen before.
So, to close this discussion out, do you guys have any particular lessons that immediately come to your mind that we haven't talked about that you want to pass on to new players?
I would say that don't credit feed. If you just want to see the rest of the game once or twice, sure, that's fine. But I wouldn't say that you should aim for 5 CCs, 4 CCs, stuff like that. You should aim for the 1 CC. And if you keep game overing early, then that just means that you need more practice on the parts that are giving you trouble.
That's really good advice.
Yeah. Also, don't credit feed for practice. If you do that, then you're only encountering every section of the game once, and then it's over, and then you have to start again from stage 1.
True, yeah. And I imagine, too, for a newer player, that it's a bit of a crutch because you're not tackling some of the more fundamental lessons you need to be learning. For instance, I feel like there's certain shmups that are kind of designed to teach you lessons, like the stage 3 boss of Dodonpachi is pretty big hurdle for a new player, but it teaches you a lot of valuable lessons about the genres. How to stream stuff, how to tap dodge. A really good learning lesson, but if you just credit feed through that boss every time, you're not going to really get those lessons anyway.
And you're not really forced to learn when you're credit feeding. You just kind of do what you do every time, but then hope you do a little bit better.
Right. Consistency, exactly.
Yeah.
How about you, Moglar? Any final lessons that stand out to you that you want to pass on?
I don't know. If you want to improve, the main thing is just to play a lot. You also should try to optimize your playtime if you can. That's definitely a big thing. Like, learning things, at least at first, through practice is definitely very big and will save you a lot of time. Yeah,
for sure. And I think a lot of players don't understand some of the tools they have available to them, like stage select or checkpoint systems or save states, because I feel like those things aren't communicated well to players, especially with certain ports and stuff like that. Like, hey, this port on the Switch is literally just the arcade ROM. And so there you go, play the arcade ROM. And so these players just play up to stage 3, get murked, and they're like, okay, this genre is really hard. And that's about it. They don't understand that there's ways to improve and how to go about doing that exactly. Well, I think it was awesome for you guys coming on. I decided to save the little bit about Stunfest at the end just so Kiwi's experience isn't like at the start of the episode.
Yeah.
So do you mind talking a little bit about Stunfest, Kiwi, before we go?
Yeah, sure. It was actually my first time out of the country, so that was an adventure.
You had to get your passport and all that stuff?
Yep. And everything was actually really simple to all the traveling was really simple, getting from point A to point B once I got to France, because Yam was just such a huge help. The actual venue was really nice. It was really big. The shmup section wasn't too huge. It was in a corner, but there was a fair amount of stuff to do there. And the runs were great. It was so cool being in the bleachers there, seeing everything on such a big screen. And those Futari runs were really stressful live. That was quite the experience.
What was the vibe in the room like? Because it looks like from the stream that the audience was fairly large, but it's hard to say. So give us the rundown on like the audience size and what the kind of vibe was.
Yeah, it actually was fairly large, which I was surprised about. People got pretty excited when he would do some crazy dodges, which was really cool to see. It was like a fighting game crowd being excited at a really cool combo or reversal.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool to see excitement from people who probably didn't play the genre. And I think that there was a bigger turnout for Futari than Toho 13. I don't know about my runs because I wasn't really paying attention to that.
Watching the crowd between bullets. It's like, wait, who's out there?
My runs went pretty well too. The first one did.
First one was amazing. First one was ridiculous.
Thank you. My execution was pretty good on that run. I was pretty proud of that one. The second run was not as good. Okay, so it was good, but that game over was so unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because if I actually finished, that would have been 189 million.
Because you were going for riskier stuff that second run, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Where did you game over?
I game overed at the TLB.
Yeah, right at the end there.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, the TLB gives about 30 million points. So, yeah. I did everything else pretty well, though.
How close would it have been to your record at that time if you'd gotten that clear?
About 189 million, maybe 188, because I would have been more stressful. Maybe wouldn't have got as good of bullet clears. And my record is 191.
So it would have been right there, essentially.
Yeah. And there is a pretty big difference between 189 and 191.
Oh.
Fairly big difference. So it's not like that almost was it, but that's still like a really good run.
Mm-hmm. I was watching you play live. You looked like a T2 Terminator. You looked like so focused, and it was really impressive. Like, it didn't look like you were nervous at all. It looked like you were a machine. Did you feel that way, or you just have a killer face?
A killer face. Yeah, that's my murdering face. I was expecting to be really stressed out. I was really stressed out when I was behind the stage waiting to go on. But once I got up there and then cleared stage 1 without any mistakes, then I actually started to enjoy it. I was actually having a lot of fun up there. So after that, I wasn't really stressed until the very end, just because of the TLB and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, both runs I was pretty happy, not really freaking out, anything like that. It's actually something I really want to do again because I really enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, I think it went really well. My question is, so I've had certain fighting game tournaments where, okay, I'm not like a legit player or anything, but in my scene, I'm the best player I was when the game was still played. And there were some tournaments where people were coming out of state and I kind of had to like defend our territory. And I legitimately, the night before, everyone has all these expectations. It's a stupid video game. The night before, I was like freaking out. Oh, I was so nervous. Why am I so goddamn stressed over a freaking video game? Did you have anything like that before your runs, or were you just kind of not too worried about it?
Basically, my mentality is just fake it till you make it. I would just act super confident and all. I wouldn't really let on that I was nervous. I would just kind of not think about it until the day of. And then, well, of course I was practicing. I'm not saying that I wasn't trying, but...
You're just too swag.
Yeah. The day of, I just kind of trusted in my training and did some practice runs. They all turned out pretty well. Basically just suppress the nervousness. Just the biggest time when it came out was like I said, when I was waiting behind the stage to go on. Once I got up there, I was most stressed at stage 1. Then after that, I was fine because, like, if I die on stage 1, that just looks really dumb.
Yeah. And I've had moments where there's parts of your run that you feel like, if I just get through this part, you feel good. You're like, okay, I can do this. I can do this. For you, it was stage 1, it sounds like.
Yeah, stage 1 and stage 3. Because there are a couple things on stage 3 that are... The stage 3 boss is pretty risky.
Yeah, because I haven't done a really like legit live demonstration like you have, but I have done just streams and stuff, and there's been times where fair number of viewers on my stream, and all of a sudden I feel like, oh shit, I better play well, because this is the only time they're going to watch me stream, probably, so I better not screw this up. And there's been some runs where after I get past a certain point, I'm like feeling myself, then it becomes fun. So I can kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
So outside your demonstrations, what are some other fun aspects of the event, especially since you were a player there, that we should know about?
There were a lot of indie games there. It was fun to walk around and try those things out. They had the Kill a Kill fighting game demo set up. I played a lot of Tetris there. They had a Tetris for the Neo Geo set up. It's not released yet, but someone's making that. So there was
cool.
a lot of stuff that was fun to do with people, like Twinkle Star Sprites, that too. Apparently there was also a Nex Machina, something like that. There was a Nex Machina speedrun, or maybe score run, I don't remember. And it was supposed to be done with like a band playing with it.
Cool.
So it was supposed to be like super play and a concert at the same time. I didn't really figure out when they were supposed to do that, so I never ended up seeing it, but that was pretty cool. I saw some of the Nex Machina run without the concert, though.
Nice.
Yeah, just seeing all the tournaments and stuff like that, that was a lot of fun. Oh yeah, they had tons of speedruns there. Like Super Mario 64, they had a Final Fantasy speedrun that went like 6 or 8 hours, something like that.
Yeah, that's
there was
crazy.
Just a whole lot of stuff there.
It's like the shmup experience going out there and meeting all the European players and stuff. Was there any people that you were familiar with online, besides Plasmo and stuff, like that you were really looking forward to seeing?
I didn't realize that M. Night was going to be there, but I did meet M. Night, so that was fun. He's really nice. He's just as enthusiastic in real life as online.
Nice.
So I met M. Night, Yam, Plasmo, Danbo. That was fun.
Oh, I bet.
He is the funniest guy. He's just, oh man.
Yeah, I even talked about that just even from a viewer experience when he was doing the commentary with Plasma on your runs. He was really funny. I think that's some of the best I've ever heard. I talked about it quite a bit in the Stunfest ep that I did because I was really impressed with his sense of humor and stuff.
When all of us went out to eat, I forgot the name of the restaurant. I don't know, it's not important. When we all went out to eat, he was there with one of his friends, and it was like watching a sitcom. They were just constantly saying hilarious stuff back and forth. My brother and I, we didn't need to find any other kind of entertainment or talk to anyone. we just kind of watched them do their thing the whole time, and they were just always doing hilarious stuff. They're like typical Scottish people too, like with the accent, like the way they act. It's all hilarious.
I bet he was really funny on the mic, and he'd have some funny moments on stream and stuff.
He was really nice too.
Bet you got to play some double action and stuff, because I heard he brought it.
Oh yeah, I did get. I still haven't uploaded a video of the changed patterns on the final boss. I should do that. I took a video. Yeah, double action seems really good. The shot types seem a lot more balanced, so you can probably use whichever one you like now, instead of a variable being the king.
Uh-huh.
So that's really nice. And a lot of new scoring changes, like a pattern bonus being doubled and stuff if you no miss, no bomb, no special it, stuff like that. Lots of really fun changes.
From what I heard, it sounds like double action is pretty much like a new game, and that's what I've heard. Like the stages are new, the layouts are new. Is that right? Is it just like a whole new experience there, or is it still the same stages with different layouts and stuff?
Okay, so the Stunfest double action doesn't have like all the new patterns and stage layouts and stuff. Most of the boss attacks are going to be completely different in the final version of double action. I believe the stages are getting changed around too. But the demo I played was more like showing off the balance changes, the final boss changes, the new mechanics, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to see like all the new stuff that was in double action.
It sounds like he's still working on it.
Yeah, the new final boss phases were in there at least.
So what was the biggest surprise for you at Stunfest, or something that was really awesome that you hadn't expected?
I really, really enjoyed just being around people in real life that liked shmups. I mean, I've never really met anyone in real life that played shmups. It's kind of something that I didn't realize I would enjoy so much, but just knowing that there are people around me that actually like this genre that's so niche, it was just so cool.
Yeah, that's true. I've never met anyone.
Yeah, it's super weird.
It's almost like we speak some kind of hidden language or something, and then to actually meet other people who are into the genre is like,
one of my kind.
Yeah, exactly. Because it is such a niche genre. So in my Stunfest ep, I want to hear your guys' thoughts, both of your guys' thoughts on this idea. We talked about Maribel's run and how he was kind of feeling dissatisfied with the second one that didn't end up clearing. And I really felt for him because there had been times in tournaments where I lost to someone, and it was someone I didn't want to lose to, and I was so salty. I went home like pissed. I couldn't stand it. But there was a chance for redemption next month. But I imagined, the way Stunfest works, once a year, people don't repeat their runs and stuff. I imagined, what if I'd lost that tournament to that guy? I did beat him, by the way. I lost the tournament to the guy, and there was no...
But who's keeping count?
But there was no run back. That was it. And I just had to take it, and that was it.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would burn me for years. So I thought, hey, we should do something in Shmup Slam like called redemption runs for Stunfest, where if you're not satisfied with your Stunfest run, you can like retry it at Shmup Slam. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Because like you were saying, it's once a year, you're not guaranteed to go back again ever. So there's not really any kind of closure you can get if you do mess up.
Exactly. So that's what I was thinking is, if you wanted, and Maribel, have you guys retry those runs. Well, you got your run though, but if you wanted to do like the really swaggy, all the points run.
All the points.
All the points. You could retry it at Shmup Slam.
All right. I'll think about that.
Or you could play a different game because, I mean, you did such a good job with your demonstrations that I felt like you could walk away feeling like you definitely accomplished your goal. I don't know if you felt that way, but I would have felt that way.
Yeah, for the most part. I just kind of try to suppress any feelings that I didn't do as well as I could have, because The first one was really good. I'm really happy with that one. So, and besides, the second run got to the TLB, so it was pretty much close enough to clearing.
Yeah.
So I'm not too dissatisfied.
Dying on the TLB, you know what I mean? Like, that's the part
Yeah,
where people expect you to die anyway, so it's not the same thing as dying mid-run or something like that.
I feel for Mario. I hope he doesn't feel too bad about that second run.
Yeah, and I talked about this too on the Stunfest ep, but a lot of people didn't listen to that, so I feel fine repeating it here, is that I feel like with Shmups, it's not like other demonstrations like speedrunning where, I mean, there are some speedruns where it is really risky and stuff, like there's some Super Metroid ones like that, but for the most part, if you make a mistake, even in Super Metroid, like let's say you miss a wall jump, Samus doesn't explode and die for missing a wall jump, but in a Shmup, if you literally miss time, just like one little movement, you're dead. That's it. And so it's such a brutal demonstration. It's like the most brutal form of demonstration ever. So I feel like, because I'm going to do a demonstration at Shmup Slam, and I'm not even going to worry too much about it because I'm sure I'll punk out and die. Like a Coliseum or something where not everyone's going to walk out alive. The stakes are too high.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
The margin of error is so low in these games that not everyone's going to walk out alive.
I remember there was one GDQ run with I don't remember his name at the moment, but Bouncy Boy, that's it. Bouncy Boy was doing a GDQ run of Super Mario Sunshine, and it was Bianco 4, the secret stage. He completely finished the stage, and then right at the star, he jumped right over it and died and had to redo the whole thing, and it lost like several minutes, and it was the most sad thing ever. But even then, it's just a higher time.
Yeah.
It's not like that's it, go home.
Yeah, with Shmups, it's like, okay, you can hit continue, but Shmups do a very good job of shaming you when you die. It's like,
Yeah.
Game over, and it like stops it, resets your score, resets the
Why
rank.
don't you try hard?
Yeah, Shmups let you know that you messed up. It's very clear to everyone, yeah, he's dead. He did not make it. Whereas sometimes when I'm showing my friends Super Metroid speedruns, I'll totally miss a short charge and like fumble around and look like an idiot for a few seconds. They hardly ever notice. It's like, oh, they didn't know I was supposed to short charge there. They didn't know I missed the Shine Spark. They didn't know any of that. But in Shmups, I miss something like that. The ship explodes, game over, go home. Oh, that's it. So
Yeah.
it's just the stakes are a lot higher, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just expect it's a game where you're supposed to suicide. Don't worry. I'm sure someone who's never seen a shmup before would think that.
So, Moglar, what do you think about, because you did the Shmup Slam video, what do you think about doing a live demonstration? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, yeah, it's mainly just because of how wrong it could go. It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So what are the emote requirements?
The emote requirements are 6 or less bombs and deaths combined.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
the bombs is where it gets you.
If I just had to do one run on a live event, I could still fuck that up.
Yeah. I was considering doing one for the first Shmup Slam, but I decided not to because I had to wake up at like 8 in the morning and then sit down for 12 hours, and I was like, I don't have the power to pull off a run in the middle of this, but this next one I'm going to do one and probably mess up big time for you guys, so you guys I can be the icebreaker for everyone. It's like, okay, this is what, when it goes wrong, this is what it looks like, so.
I could like emote 2-all consistently, or at least get to like 2-5 consistently, I'd probably consider it.
Yeah.
There's the 1cc marathon coming up soon again, I think. But I don't think I'm going to submit.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
Also because of the silly rule where you'd actually never be able to try again because they don't redo games.
Right.
Yeah, that's really
Be
weird.
locked out forever.
Rule.
So maybe next year if they're still doing that next year. I don't know.
So I tried to format it to where, because I was thinking about this for the first Shmup Slam, and it's actually really funny. Everyone who did live demonstrations for the first one are just freaking beasts and murdered the games pretty much. So
Yeah,
it didn't become an issue. I was thinking like,
they're both really good players.
yeah, I was thinking about myself in that situation essentially, where I am prone to nerves from time to time. So I was thinking, okay, what is a good balance to where maybe you can get your nerves out, but you're not totally holding up the stream? So I thought a good one would be if you make a mistake somewhat early on, like you can mulligan it back. You can like run it back real quick. But if you get too late into it, you're just going to have to play it out just because of time constraints. For instance, if Kiwi died in stage 1, he could reset and try again.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Do you think that's like a good compromise to where it's not taking the hype out of it, but it's also not like making it completely brutal and cutthroat?
Yeah, I would say maybe like 1 or 2 stage 1 resets. Maybe depending on the game, 1 stage 2 reset, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of it would be just to get your nerves out. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on, you guys. It's been an awesome episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Any final thoughts before we head out?
Shooting game never die.
Awesome. Moglar, any final thoughts?
I don't know.
That's fine. Well, thanks for coming on, you guys.
All right, see you later.
See ya.
See ya.
What is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. But enough talk. How about you?
These guys don't quit. Don't go dying on me.